Have you ever wondered why the Develop Raw filter changes names inside of Luminar Neo? Well, that's because there's two different types of Develop filter in the software. Now, if you've never seen this when editing inside of Luminar, then you're likely working with JPEGs, PNGs, or any other format that is not considered a raw file. But don't worry, you'll still have something to get out of this video, so don't leave, because I'm going to go over some of the critical information about the Develop filter, both the raw and the standard Develop filter in today's video, so that way you understand more about the behavior of Luminar Neo, and when you're ready to dive in to the raw editing, you know exactly what's going on with Develop Raw. Let's go. Here we are inside of Luminar Neo, and for those of you who may never have seen the Develop Raw filter, that's perfectly fine. If you want to see it, you can download a copy of this file using the link in the description box below, and once you get it into Luminar Neo, come over to the edit panel, and guess what? You're going to see the Develop Raw filter listed underneath the essentials, and you can tell that it's the raw filter because you get this little blue icon off to the right of the Develop tool or Develop filter, and it says raw. Now, what is the Develop Raw filter? Let's go ahead and kind of unpack that. This is Luminar's control center for preparing an image for editing. All right, inside of this one little filter, this is the place where you start to work on your image. Think of this as the digital darkroom. If we had film darkrooms back in the day when you would expose a roll of film, and if you've never exposed a roll of film, don't worry about it. You don't really need to know all of those principles because we're going to cover how to use this tool here in a bit. But the main point is that this happens at the beginning of your processing workflow. Very similar to if you shot film, you had to take that film and then you had to go and develop it. Well, that's exactly what's happening right here inside of the Develop Raw profile or filter. Now that we know what the Develop Raw filter is, let's talk about the foundational Develop filter for a second. And here we have the Develop filter. You can tell that it's not the raw version because it doesn't have that raw indicator. So that's the first step. But the second mindset, or the second thing that you should be aware of, is this will always go above whatever base edits you put inside of the Develop Raw filter. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and make a quick exposure adjustment here, just so that way I can close this off. We're going to come over to edits because this is the easiest way to see it. The Develop Raw filter, it sits down here in the raw edit section right above noiseless AI, if I could say that right. But we're not going to talk about that today. We're just talking about the Develop filters. And the Develop Raw filter is the first step in making the image look the way that we want. Then we have the Develop filter that sits on top of it. Now, I can add as many Develop filters as I need to, and we're going to talk about the differences between the two here in a bit, but I wanted to show the process of the two. And this is where I think a lot of people get confused. They see Develop Raw and they think that it's the exact same as Develop, but it's not. Let's talk about the differences right now. So going back to the digital darkroom analogy, if this is the very first step of making the image, think of Develop Raw as your priming the canvas for all of the amazing work you're going to do to it. You want to get this done as best as possible. Now, there are some fundamental differences to this version of Develop vice the other version of Develop. And one of those primary differences is the camera profile. You can change your camera profile, and I have a video that I'll link in the description box below for anyone who's curious about camera profiles. But essentially, you get to change the way that Luminar Neo is generating the image overall. As I hover over these, you can see how that changes in the image, where some of them get brighter. This one is a monochrome or black and white, and some of them get a little bit more gritty and more contrasty and dark. So you could play around with these as much as you want, but the so what here is camera profile is only found inside of the Develop Raw version. The next thing that's different inside of Develop Raw is the ability to change your white balance. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with white balance, this is essentially just the color temperature that your camera is trying to achieve when capturing the image. One of the cool things about working with a raw image, and the reason why many photographers do, is because they have complete control in post-production software like Luminar Neo to change that color temperature. To do so, when you activate the Develop Raw module or filter, you can come down to the color section and you'll expand that, and you'll see you have temperature here. Now, I don't want anyone to be fooled, because this does exist inside of the Develop module or Develop filter. That is not the raw version. The difference here is this works in what's known as Kelvin. So it's a more precise measurement of the temperature adjustment, and it's working at the raw level of the image. So when you pull this, you are really changing that white balance as if you had shot it like this in camera. All right, that's the difference here. So don't be fooled when you see color later on in the Develop module or Develop filter and think that, oh, well, that's the same thing. The difference is that you have more precise measurements using the Kelvin scale than you do inside of the other Develop filter. Now, another one of the niche things inside of the Develop Raw filter versus the Develop filter is the optics section. And inside of the optics section, most of these things are going to be inside of the other Develop filter. The difference with Develop Raw is that you can do auto distortion corrections and auto fix chromatic aberrations. These two things, you can check them, and if it fixes your image, then great. If it doesn't, then just turn them back off. But know that they're only available here inside of Develop Raw. And again, that's so you can prepare your image for the work that you want to do. So if I want to go ahead and correct the distortion because this bridge probably needs it, then I can do so by checking that block right there. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the Develop filter to see the differences more explained. So if I come over to Develop, you'll notice that I have a lot of the exact same sections inside of here as I did inside of the Develop Raw. So the difference, we already know camera profile can only be found in Develop Raw. Then we have light, blacks, curves, color, sharpness, noise reduction, optics, and transform. And if I come over here, I literally have everything the exact same, except for I don't have camera profile. So that's one of the first differences with the Develop filter. Now, one of the next differences that I always love to point out, because a lot of people miss this, and I want to be very, very upfront with this, is the Develop module or Develop filter is the only one that allows you to mask in your adjustments. If we come back to Develop Raw, you'll notice I don't have any ability to mask in the adjustments. And again, going back to that digital darkroom analogy or illustration, we wouldn't need to locally apply any of these adjustments. We want to get the foundational image ready before we start to do any dodging and burning in very specific areas and things of that sort. So there would be no need for masking in the Develop Raw module. Think of this as literally just preparing your image to get edited. And that's all that you really need to know about this section. So when we come back over to Develop, the other aspect that I mentioned earlier is inside of color. Notice that we have the temperature slider and I just have a 0 here. This is no longer working in Kelvin. So that means that when I pull these adjustments, you can see it's even adjusting the overall color balance very differently than what I was getting when I was using Develop Raw. And these are working in, or this is working in a point system versus the Kelvin system, which again is more accurate. So if you want to change your white balance, I highly recommend that you work with Develop Raw. But again, you only get Develop Raw if you are working with a raw image. The next difference is inside of the optics section. When I expand this, you'll notice we're missing those two buttons at the top for the auto distortion correction and the auto defringe, or I'm sorry, not auto defringe, that's right there. The auto chromatic aberration correction. All right. That's only available in the Develop module, or Develop Raw module, I should say. So those are the differences between the two modules. Now, before we go any further, if you have questions and you want to learn more about using Luminar Neo, consider signing up for a coaching call with me. I will help walk you through this software, answer your questions, and get you up and running, especially if you're confused about one thing or another inside of the software. Second, if you're wondering why do I have this auto adjust at the top of both of my Develop modules? Well, that's because I am on the Pro yearly plan, and essentially this is one of the paid features beyond purchasing just the software. The good news is the first year that you purchase the software, you will get access to this for that year. If you want to pick this up and you don't have Luminar Neo already, consider using my coupon code FWP10 and the affiliate link down in the description box below. I do make a commission from everyone who uses it, but that's at no extra cost to you, and it goes to helping support this channel. Now, let's say you already have Luminar Neo and you're interested in getting the auto adjust feature. You can do so by signing up for the Pro annual plan. And if you use FWP10, you will save some money when you check out, and I greatly appreciate it. Now, let's take a look at how we can use these tools in a workflow. I'm going to come down here to my three-dot menu and revert to original, and you'll see that I get just my raw edits right over here, or my raw develop module. So first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and change my camera profile. And I like to use things that give me a little bit more saturation. Camera landscape tends to do that, so I'm going to go with that. And then I'm going to add in some contrast by pushing smart contrast to the right, and maybe even pulling down on the shadows, because I'm okay with this getting a little bit darker. And if I'm moving really fast, don't worry. You can ask me questions down in the comment section below. And by the way, if you are familiar with using Luminar Neo, how many develop modules or develop filters do you apply to your images? Let me know that number down in the comment section below. So we're going to go ahead and pull the highlights down, and I like to pull my highlights down pretty far on images like this. I'm okay if the overall image gets a little dark, but if we look at the before and the after, I think we're starting to get this develop thing going just the way that I want it to go. So I'm going to leave that like so. We're going to come down to optics, and I'm going to use the auto distortion correction. And that's just going to help with the weird shape. Like, it's extremely helpful when you photograph something that has tall, long lines that need to be corrected decently. You may not need to do it for yours, but I felt like it needed to be done for this particular image, especially since it is arching all the way up to the top. So the next step that I would do here to prepare this image is I would come into my blacks, and I think I actually have a pretty good white point. I'm going to go ahead and check the little circle here to get my clipping indicators, and you can see I'm losing some information when I zoom in, but that's in places of the image that I'm not really worried about losing black detail. So the next step that I'll do here is I'll activate my white clipping indicator, and you can see I'm losing some information here in the sky. Ultimately, I'm not really worried about that, but if you needed to recover it, then this is the place where you want to recover that. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull down on my whites until I start to see that come back, and that's really not doing it for me. So let's come back into light, and I'm probably going to need to pull down on my exposure. Let's pull the highlights down just a bit more, and that seems to work. So to really finish this off, I'm just going to pull down on my exposure, and that is about right. Now, don't fear. I get it. The image is a little darker than I would probably want it to be. We can correct that using the curves correction here. So we'll just go ahead and pull up right here in the middle, and that brightens up everything. And if you feel like you're losing some contrast, then you can just pull down just a touch in the shadow area here. And I'm not worried about missing any highlights because the sky is pretty bright. So I think that this is looking pretty good. Here is the before, and here is the after. Now, in many cases, this could be where you stop. And you know, if this is how you want the image to look. But once you have your light the way that you want it to be, the next step is working with color. And this is where modifying that color temperature really does come in handy. So if you wanted this to be a little bit warmer overall, or just introducing some more of the orange look to the image, then you just pull it to the right, and a little does go a long way here. Remember, this is a very precise measurement, so as I pull this, you can get like really orange or really blue. I don't recommend that. Double clicking will reset it to your original amount based off of how it was shot in camera. And then again, if I want to just warm this up a touch here, this is where you can do that. And then the other two sliders, you can mess with tint, but I wouldn't recommend it. The other two sliders that I come into and work with inside of the Develop Raw module is Vibrance and Saturation. Now, Vibrance is just going to put a little bit more punch in areas where there wasn't much color to begin with. You can notice that in the sky. As I pull this up and down, you can see how the sky is just getting a little bit more punchy as I pull it up. So that could be helpful, but then you start to get like these weird looks in your colors overall. So if I pull down on the vibrance, you can see how I'm just getting like really vibrant-y greens, and that's just not the look that I'm going for in this image. So I only want to be a little aggressive with my vibrance slider here today. Every image will need something different, so don't look at the values and think, oh, that's what I should always apply to my images. Nope. You should look at what you need for your image independently. Then the next thing we'll do is push up on the saturation just a little bit, and a little goes a long way here. Remember, what we're trying to do right now is just set the image up for the future processing. We're going to apply more filters to the image overall. We're just trying to get it ready to go. So that's that. Now, the next thing is sharpness. Now, every raw image needs a little bit of sharpening. How much sharpening is completely subjective. I typically push this up to about 10 to 20. So today I'm going to go about 17, and I leave everything else alone. I'm not going to go deep into the sharpening, but just know that every raw image needs a little bit of sharpening just to get a little bit of punch into the image and clarity into the image. So let's take a look at our before, and here is our after. So far, we have a really dark overall image, so it's time to start working with very specific areas. Remember what I mentioned earlier is this is a global edit, or it's going over the entire image. The Develop Raw goes over the entire image. I don't even have the ability to work with just one area. That's where the Develop tool comes in. So we're going to click on Tools, and we will go ahead, and there's this weird situation with Luminar that you have to apply a different filter in order to get the develop tool without the raw indicator. Because if I click on this, these are all of my settings where I was already working inside of develop raw. So what I like to do, and this is just a personal preference, is I always enjoy adding an enhance AI filter. Because if I just pull up on Accent AI just a little bit, I usually get something that I really like, and it doesn't impact the image all that much. Another filter that you could go for if you don't want to use Enhance AI is you can go for a color filter, and instead of modifying the color inside of the Develop Raw, you could just apply a vibrance filter here, close that down, or apply a little bit of vibrance, close it down, and now we have just the Develop tool. And as always, this is the most foundational tool inside of Luminar Neo, because what I can do is, let's say I want to open up the shadows in just this area right over here. I can click on masking, and I'm going to use a radial gradient today. And I am going to move through this relatively quick because this is not a class on masking. But if you got questions about masking, remember you can sign up for a coaching call, or you can just ask me down in the description, not in the description box, in the comment section. I always say that below, and I will do my best to answer the questions. But if you want to show me the thing that you're working on, then by all means, sign up for a coaching call. But once you have that set, then I can come over here and I can just pull up on my shadows, and you can see how that's opening everything up there. And I want to do the same thing over on this side. And so this is where you can apply multiple instances of the develop module. So I'm going to go ahead and click to close that one down. And when I click it again, I get a new one. This time I'm just going to go ahead and pull up on my shadows, and I'm looking at it over the entire image, but I want to apply it just to this side over here. So I'm going to come back into masking, grab another radial adjustment, click, drag, make it a little bit longer, maybe even rotate it just a touch here, pull that out even further, and then go ahead and go back. And so now I can look at the before and the after, and I've already opened up this area. So the last thing that I'll do to this particular image, again, I'm going to create another develop module, and I'll just go with develop. This time I'm going to pull down on the exposure here, and I want to really just focus on the sky. So I'll come to masking, and I'm going to try the mask AI. And if this doesn't work, I have another option that I can do to apply this to just the sky. But my hope is that by activating the mask AI, I can click on sky, and it's going to select just the sky for me. Just give it a second. There it is. Perfect. And then I can come back, and now I have applied that mask to just the sky to really darken down the sky, and I can close that off. So here is the before, and here is the after for this overall image. It does look a little underexposed, if you will. So what I could do is, again, come back into develop, and instead of using the light adjustments, I could use a curve adjustment and just pull up into the midtones here, and then again apply some more contrast. And I'm doing this globally just to show you that you don't always have to work with just independent areas in the mask. And that is just a very quick, rough edit that you could apply to an image using Luminar Neo and a few develop modules, or develop filters, I should say. If I hold the backslash key, you can see the before and the after. And then of course, if you want to go back and look at your work, you can click on edits, and you'll notice I now have 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 5th develop module that you see over here is a raw develop module, which we already discussed. So if you found value in the video, smash the like button. If you want to learn more, sign up for that coaching call. Link is in the description box below. If you want to pick up Luminar Neo or save some money when you shop over at the Luminar website, consider using my coupon code FWP10. I make a commission from everyone who uses it, but that's at no extra charge to you. It's a great way of supporting this channel. If you got questions, let me know in the comment section below. And until the next time, I want you to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.